Is that okay? Okay. I'll yell. After Christmas, James McDonald was sent to Burnside Correctional Institution. He had been caught in between exemptions, and basically my take on it is because he didn't confess to being a bad boy, the judge decided to spank him and send him to jail for 60 days. When other patients in this province, one of them's here somewhere, I believe, Flute Wood, was caught in between exemptions, and his charges, he received a discharge in the end. There was a gentleman the month after who went to court in Pictou, who was written about in the Mum's newsletter, who got a fine for $1,500 for growing more plants than James had, and he was caught twice. Well, a couple little birdies told me the reason for that was that basically he was a rat in Pictou County. So if you don't show remorse and don't rat out your neighbors, folks, this is what can happen to you no matter what your health is. James is dealing with chronic health issues, and yet he was thrown into Burnside for approximately 60 days. What he's asked me to read comes from the Halifax Media Co-op, and it just was released this week. They've been doing a series on what happens at Burnside, and for folks who've never stopped and thought about it, it's quite eye-opening. Dispatches from Burnside. Teach your children well. Trigger warning. The following article deals with real life at Burnside Correctional Facility. Instances of drug use, violence, and rape are recounted. Let's say your child has an issue with drugs or alcohol and gets in trouble with the law. When he ends up at Burnside for a short stay, here's what he can expect. After being processed and admitting, he will be put in the lockdown range for the first week or two. The lockdown ranges are not just for new admissions, they're for the most problematic offenders. So usually the floors are covered in garbage, sprinkler water, human feces, urine, blood, rotting food and milk, and random papers. There's rarely a TV on the lockdown range because it gets smashed very quickly. Sometimes the phones are smashed and unusable. The cells usually stink from shit bombs going off all the time and are caked in disgusting residue. Nobody has decided to clean them. On arrival, the most anti-social people on the range will try to manipulate, browbeat, and threaten the new guy into popping his sprinkler. This results in sticky black water destroying everything in the cell and coating the occupant with odorous slime. Also, the facility will charge the offender with mischief and put a $600 lien on his canteen account automatically. James can attest to that firsthand. If the new guy is going through withdrawals, as is often the case, there will be no health care for him. Other offenders will offer to help him in the form of puked up methadone or pills that are cheeked earlier. Oftentimes these pills will be laced with cleaning powders or other toxic substances that the inmates have acquired. Once in a while, the new person will be offered a lethal overdose unbeknownst to him thanks to the guy that's being helpful. These cases end up in the newspaper, prompting a facility-wide lockdown. Sometimes he doesn't die, though, and just ends up with permanent brain damage. If your son survives all this, then he will likely be called names like sex offender, mutt, goof, rat, or diddler. Usually that prompts someone on the range to shit-bomb him. This is for all the sheer amusement of the other inmates. If he's not involved with any of the local gangs, he'll not be allowed out of his cell to use the shower or phone. If he ends up pulling the sprinkler or getting shit-bombed, the guards will just leave him in it for many days without any clean or dry sheets and no cleaning supplies to deal with the mess. If someone else pulls the sprinkler, all the cells nearby fill with black water and destroy everything. If all the sprinklers on the range get popped, the whole place fills up with an inch or two of the gross water. If someone else above you pulls the sprinkler, you'll get rained on, wrecking all your clothes, bedding, and paperwork. Inmates control who gets in and out of their cell, when, and for how long. If the guards try to take control, they get assaulted. The worst behaved inmate will take control of the anarchy and get out for several hours, while leaving everybody else he doesn't like stuck for days or weeks. Usually you'll have to pay him canteen or pills in order to get a shower or to avoid being shit-bombed. The law requires that inmates get 30 minutes of exercise outside their cell per day and 30 minutes or fresh air per day, but neither of these are even intrastructurally possible at Burnside. The guards are only there to walk around every 30 minutes, push sprinkler water down the drain, and open a cell when the most antisocial offender, the top dog, tells them to. When the guard usually does his 30-minute walk through, everybody yells, "Six up," and the inmates stop talking until he leaves. If you ask a guard to get you out of your cell, you get shit-bombed. If you tell the guard, you get shit-bombed. He ignores you and the other inmates scream at you and shit-bomb you 10 more times while calling you a rat and a piece of shit. If you put your clothes in the laundry pickup, they will be cleaned and dumped on the range. Whoever is out at the time will either steal your clothes or shit in them and put them in your cell for you. After a couple of weeks of this, you may be put on an open range. Open ranges have 23 inmates that are overbunked to 32, with many guys sleeping on the floor. There's a TV in one corner of the range, and the most violent offender controls it. There's usually one video game on the range as well controlled by the most violent guy. If you get any medication or methadone, you will usually be forced to give it to somebody under threat of violence. If you have money in your canteen or phone, the same thing happens with that. The only way this stops is if you lash out with extreme violence. The same goes for services at the facility. If you have a health issue, you'll be ignored if you ask politely about it. If you threaten to cause an incident, you will be immediately seen by medical staff and your problem will be taken care of. If you refuse to comply with the demands of the other inmates, you will be beaten up and will have to hide your injuries, or else you'll be beaten up some more and put on a lockdown range. Still a bad situation, for another few months. In the 4 years that I have been here, there have only been 2 rapes that I know of, so you don't need to worry about that. Rapes only happen in the protective custody area of the jail. Thank you, sorry about that. Where they put sex offenders. Protective custody areas are the most dangerous parts, and once you check in, you never check back out again into the general population. The guards at admitting try and trick you into checking into those dangerous areas by asking you, do you require protective custody? Always answer no to this question. The 2 rapes that I know of happened because a scared teenager thought the guards would protect him, and so he ended up bunking on the floor of a dangerous sex offender's cell. The job of the guards is so boring, the most clever of the bunch will try to instigate problems for their own amusement. Some will accuse the new guy of being a rat or having done something in violation of the jail code, and watch them either get shit-bombed, beat up, and laugh. Some guards will even pay off the guy who did it with an extra meal tray. Some guards seem to see this place as a live cockfight between Homo sapiens. Exciting stuff. Sometimes it's not clear who's more antisocial, the inmates or the guards. Guards will routinely threaten violence against inmates and carry out those threats in areas without cameras. I wouldn't be surprised if I get the shit beaten out of me just for articulating this. If your loved one makes it through all this to his release date, he will be currently kicked out of the back door with nothing more than a bus ticket and a serious case of post-traumatic stress disorder. Keep in mind that he was only there because his coping mechanisms involved the use of substances. This place is a war zone with nothing but drugs and violence. Even the most myopic person should be able to comprehend that Burnside is reinforcing antisocial coping mechanisms such as violence and the use of substances. This is 2015, and society's solution to dealing with violent drug addicts is to force them to stay in a place that conditions them to be more violent and more addicted to drugs. It should be a crime to support policies like this, and the punishment should be a 6-month stay at Burnside. It sure won't cure drug addiction, but it might just resolve a bad case of social myopia. Unrealistic faith in humanity is about the only thing that Burnside can correct. End dispatch. Certainly doesn't sound like a place where anyone who's critically and chronically ill belongs even for a second. And it's disgusting to think that this province is willing to continue to reinforce failed federal drug policy to send critically and chronically ill people to prison when it costs the province $57,000 for a 6-month stay in Burnside to be subjected to this when you're ill on top of it and are unable to comply with Health Canada regulations or fall between the cracks of it and you're no longer considered a patient. I think it's absolutely disgusting. And I'm now going to call on Bob Dillman for a few minutes to share his experiences with you.
Hello, can everyone hear? Okay.
I can hear you, yeah.
My name's Bob Dillman. I'm a former corrections officer. From 2000-2004, I was a corrections officer with the province, and I can tell you right now that everything that was just described to you was a positive outlook on Burnside. That's the good side of it. I've seen the worst side of it. I've seen the worst side of the province in corrections, and that's what every patient has got in store for them. Now, in 2008, I was injured on the job. I had left corrections because I hated treating people like animals. I got injured on the job, and I followed through with workers' compensation's program of feeding me pills until I can't walk. My immune system was shot, and I was basically told by doctors, don't buy any green bananas. You won't enjoy them. They won't last long enough. I was basically telling my family goodbye, and it was when John Cook, a fellow advocate here, stumbled across me and gave me a joint, and then another one, and then oil, and I started to get better. It was the only thing that could actually keep me alive at the time. What I ended up doing was through health, Capital Health here, is getting into chronic care services. They started treating me and found out that I had an immune system that was linked to the very pills that WCB mandated I take. I went back to WCB and asked them, look, I can take cannabis and solve all my problems. They said, no, under no circumstances can you take cannabis. It's either our pills or you're off the program. I was without work, without any means to support myself. I appealed and won, getting my WCB support back, but they still don't cover my cannabis. I followed Health Canada's program with the MMAR, which was very close to violating my own human rights because I wasn't allowed to ingest oil. I could only smoke the herb. Well, as much as I like smoking cannabis, I do need the oil for effective treatment of my symptoms. What I ended up doing was breaking the law. And then when they came through with the new MMPR, I just said no. Your program is violating my rights. It's going to kill me. I can't follow through with this. I am not going to go forth with your program. I'm going to do what's within my rights, and that's grow my plants, treat my own self, and anyone else that I see that needs it, I'm going to give it to them. They promptly had me and my wife arrested for growing a plant. They said that I was producing. They said I was possessing without a license. I don't need a license. This plant saves my life. It'll save yours. It'll save other people's lives. And it doesn't cause anyone any harm. 5,000 years of use. Nobody has died from cannabis. Tylenol kills 100 people a year. And that's practically free at any store. You can get Tylenol over the counter for less than I would have to buy 1 gram. And that kills people. So I don't see how any logical form other than corruption keeps this plant from everyone that can hear my voice from using it. And it is our right, and it's about time that everyone, whether you use it or not, tell the government stop wasting your money by taking people like James and other patients like myself to jail, spending $85,000 so far, and I'm not even charged completely yet. That's how much is being taken from your tax dollars. $85,000 right now, and I'm not even charged yet. It's all a money game, and it's all being played on you folks. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
System goes. So, Chris?
When I first got into the medical marijuana movement about a decade or so ago, it was really exciting, but it seemed like so much was going on out in British Columbia, and there wasn't as much of a homegrown movement, at least in the court system. We were seeing people in Nova Scotia and in the Maritimes experiencing really, really heavy criminal charges for really simple cannabis crimes, and that was one of the things that really inspired me to get into this whole thing. And about two and a half years ago, I experienced my first charges in the cannabis movement, operating a dispensary in Porter's Lake. We were raided by the Integrated Drug Unit here in Halifax, and those charges are still before the courts. We're not at trial yet. We're not even at the constitutional challenge yet. There's been so much going on in the Supreme Court of Canada with the extracts case called Smith, where the debate is happening on whether us as patients, once licensed, have the right to make edibles and extracts of various shapes and sizes, and then trickling all the way down to the federal court now, where there's an ongoing case with our right to grow and whether the right to use cannabis also entails the right to grow at home in order to minimize the costs of production and that sort of thing. So we've been able to sort of delay and push off those charges while we wait for courts with more weight, I guess, with more experts to weigh into the issue, so that the courts in Nova Scotia here can sort of follow the lead. But while that's been going on, there's been so many people getting charged here in Nova Scotia, like James, like an individual in Truro named Andrew Hillman, and like an individual in Pictou named Travis Patterson. And these are all individuals who have severe chronic medical conditions that are ongoing and who qualify to grow legally, and whether they're struggling to find a doctor to sign their license, whether they're struggling just with renewal and dotted I's and crossed T's with the Health Canada renewal process. For various reasons, these individuals ended up in situations where they're being criminally charged, and now we're going back at the courts with constitutional challenges. We're very simply just listing all the problems with the medical marijuana access regulations, with the new medical marijuana production regulations, And then we're going to back up those complaints, or what we call torts, with expert evidence. Where, you know, there's an individual in Ontario that's been a big part of bringing forward marijuana and marijuana case law over the past decade, named John Turmel. We're wanting to bring him out for some of these constitutional challenges. There's an increasing number of doctors here in Halifax that are really supportive of medical marijuana, including many of you who probably know Dr. Holland out in Dartmouth, who's really been an asset in Halifax over the past few years in terms of licensing and acting as a cannabis specialist.
Yeah,
you know, Dr. Bond, Dr. Conter, I mean, I could go on and on and on about all the doctors that over the past decade, you know, they maybe were signing a few licenses, but now they're actually occasionally even informing patients who don't know about medical marijuana, patients who are on pharmaceuticals, and they're giving them this little, hey, did you know eating cannabis might actually help with that? And you might be able to avoid some of the pharmaceuticals, and that's really exciting. And so I think getting those doctors behind these constitutional challenges, and some of them are kind of thinking about it and weighing and teetering, and I think, you know, if you have doctors in your own life, whether they're family, whether you have a good relationship with your family doctor, talk to them about these issues that are very live in the court, and spark a conversation that potentially leads towards them, you know, coming behind us as medical experts. It's not something, they don't have to, you know, get right involved in the subculture of cannabis, but we need people in the court systems that are willing to come forward and act as expert evidence. And so really keep your ears posted over the next 6 to 12 months, because it's going to be really exciting. If the support continues to grow as it has been, I think we're going to see Nova Scotia really start to put itself on the map as a cannabis point in Canada. So, yeah.
Thanks, Chris. That certainly sounds encouraging. At this point, I'd like to call on Zoe. Oh, okay. Change of plans. I'd like to call on Chris from the High Life.
How's it going, everybody?
Woohoo!
Just want everybody to know about a petition that we're starting at the High Life, or I'm Chris from the High Life Social Club. We're starting a petition to exempt cannabis consumption in designated areas from provisions of Bill 60, which is going to affect everybody's ability to vaporize or smoke cannabis in public places. As of May 31st, it'll become illegal just to use, or to vaporize or smoke cannabis in any establishment, including my social club and including the Pharmacist Medical Vapor Lounge, and any place in cannabis, even people who are prescribed cannabis legally allowed at the moment to use it wherever they please. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like everybody to take a look at the petition, and hopefully we can get your support behind this so we can all come to some reasonable conclusion with the government to allow everybody to be able to medicate in public and not be denied cannabis consumption as well as the possession and cultivation. They're just trying to make it harder for everybody to be able to enjoy cannabis and all its benefits, and we don't want that to happen, so we need everybody's support behind this. Cool. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Chris. So if you haven't signed the petition yet, be sure to do so before you go home this afternoon. And check out the High Life when you have a chance.
Yeah. Just down that way. They're just down the road.
Above Mary's Place Cafe.
I'd like to call on John Percy, who's agreed to speak this afternoon as well. John's on the board of MUM, and he's also the leader of the Nova Scotia Green Party.
Hi, my name is John. I'm a politician. It's been 18 months since my last election campaign. So we all say, hi, John. Yeah. Okay, cannabis. In 1970, some of you weren't even born. I was working to get cannabis legalized. We had something in this country called the Ladane Commission, and in 1970 they came out with their interim report recommending the decriminalization of all drugs, not just marijuana, of all drugs, and that it should no longer be a criminal issue, but it should be a public health issue, And it was a waste and a diversion of much needed resources that could be placed elsewhere. The government of the day was a Liberal government under Pierre Trudeau, and they actually commissioned this report. And when they got the interim report, they went into their cabinet room, locked the door, and they came out and they said, "What report?" They didn't act on it at all. They did nothing. All they had to do, they could have done this 45 years ago. All they have to do today is Cabinet can simply, in an order in council, remove any mention of cannabis from the schedules under the Controlled Drug and Substance Act. That's all they have to do. They just have to vote Cabinet, say it's done. It doesn't have to go to Parliament, doesn't have to go to the Senate. Governor General doesn't have to give royal assent. Nobody has to even talk about it. Cabinet just has to vote, say it's done. It's no longer part of the Controlled Drug and Substances Act. Everybody's free to do whatever the hell they want. It's not being done. It hasn't been done in 45 years. I'm very pleased that some of us here are extremely confident in how far we've come, and we've come a long way as far as public consciousness about cannabis. We did the Wellness Expo a couple of weeks ago at Exhibition Park. There were over 1,000 people that came to our booth and wanted to know more and were extremely supportive. I don't remember one negative comment. That gave me a real boost, and it gave me a lot of confidence. Until I start talking to people in the legislature again. And then we're back to 1970 again. It seems that our political class is about 50 years behind the population. And I think it's up to us as citizens to put our votes where our mouth is, and to just say, I'm not going to vote for you because we have an election coming up in October, federally. I want to appeal to the 40% of voters who don't bother to vote to actually get out and vote. The three main parties are going to put together platforms, and none of them will have cannabis legalization on the platform. We can change that if that's all we want to talk about. If we don't want to talk about what they want to talk about, they're going to have to listen to what we want to talk about. But you have to actually speak up. You have to put your hand up. You have to stand up. You have to take that microphone. And you have to pin them down. They're not going to like it, and they're not going to like you. That's too bad. So you don't like them. I don't care. We need to get this done. I really would like to see this done in my lifetime. I thought it would be easy in 1970 when the Ledane Commission report came out. I actually took copies of the report and I went around to every police station in metropolitan Toronto and dropped them off a complimentary copy and explained to them why they were no longer going to arrest people like me. That didn't work out so well. That's unfortunate, but I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do that again in the next, let's say 12 months. And I just urge you all to make it your election platform. Pin these people down. If they come to your door, don't let them leave until you get your questions answered. You know they're going to want to talk about jobs and the economy, but no, you want to talk about this. This is your platform. And they're not going to leave until you get an answer from them. They'll be extremely uncomfortable. That's too bad. Make them uncomfortable. You have a right to your medicine without giving up your liberty. And I can't believe I'm saying this in 2015, but you should not have to fear arrest and imprisonment for making yourself feel better. And it's got to stop. It has to stop. It should have stopped 45 years ago. Let's make it stop. Thank you.